What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 71 of the Hoop Venue Podcast. My name is Tyler, and as always, I'm joined by my great friend, Sean. At the time we're recording this, we're like 45 minutes removed from the NFC Championship. Super Bowl matchup confirmed. Patriots and Seahawks. Sean, who you got, man? Who you feeling? I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm personally taking
an NFL
the Seahawks.
podcast. I am too.
As I make the Broncos country let's ride joke before we hop on. Yeah, we're just like fully converted into a football podcast. We're like Nerd Session now officially.
Might as well. Yeah, we might as well just talk about concepts and like routes and all this NFL stuff, pass rush, all those buzzwords. I don't really watch football like that. I watched every single Bears game. That's the one thing I will tip my cap on.
Caleb,
and the Bears.
There we go. You have something to be excited for.
The Bears should have been in this position. It should have been Bears Patriots. I'm unbiased, very unbiased Bears enjoyer. The Iceman. All I'm saying is, did you watch the end of the Seahawks Rams game?
Yeah, great game.
The very end. Well, by the way, if you're an NFL fan at all, like no matter what type of NFL fan you are, this like little 2-game slate delivered. The first game is just classic grudge ball, all defense, snow game, nothing working on offense. Teams running the ball on third down because they know they're going to get stops. And then you have the other game, which is just like all-time QB duel. They both throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns, and it's like just running up the score. Beautiful football. And at the end of the Rams game, what was it? They got the ball back on they needed like 93 yards in 25 seconds with no touchdowns.
Or something like that. Caleb Williams would have got that done. Is that what you're about to go with?
What I'm about to say. The Iceman would have got it done. The Bears would have won that game, and it would have been Bears and Patriots in the Super Bowl. That's all I'm saying. And then it would have been same thing in the Super Bowl. The Iceman would have got it done.
Chargers are about to hire Mike McDaniel as their offensive coordinator. I've never seen brighter days. So, hey, we can both be delusional. Chargers, the Super Bowl next year is in SoFi. Okay? Chargers, just go ahead, get McDaniel hired, and then
Bears, Chargers?
Run the table.
Are we calling it now?
That's all your role, champ. Maybe like
wow.
Chargers.
Yeah. Let me know when you get 5 new offensive linemen. Then we can start talking about the Chargers, dude.
Well, 2 of them were hurt, and they're both all-pro tackles. See, there we go. We're like 3 minutes into an NBA podcast talking about the Super Bowl.
Injury excuse for the Chargers over here, man. Nothing is saving that offensive line. Nothing saving Justin Herbert, I'm afraid. He's not the Iceman. He just isn't. I apologize. No, now that there's like 12 people left listening, we owe you, because we've been gone for a solid like 2.5 weeks. Little rundown on that. Sean was sick. I had a concussion. I fell off the mountain snowboarding, typical normal podcaster stuff. Now we owe you a nerdy episode, right? We can't come back and just do something mundane. Like we gotta get back to the sauce. And this might actually be our nerdiest episode to this day. I feel like we've talked pretty in depth on a bunch of different concepts, but this one's a little bit different. So 2 episodes ago, we talked about the idea of the superstar role player, which is like someone who isn't going to be your typical second or third scoring option, but can have all-star type of impact on your team because of all the other things they do, like whether they're a floor spacer, great passer, great defender, all that good stuff. Last episode, we talked about the Trae Young dilemma, which is like this weird concept where like a player can put up 30 and 10 in a game and still arguably hurt his team because of other stuff going on, whether it's shooting efficiency, whether it's turnovers, whether it's getting picked on every single play on defense, and then what type of roster construction that forces you to get into to make that player have like the typical impact you'd expect from 30 points and 10 assists. Now we're taking it a step further, and we're just going to talk about basically everything that drives winning basketball in the NBA. Everything that has value, which obviously everything positive you do on a court, it's kind of easy to tell what's positive and what's negative. Like if you can space the floor or you can't space the floor, if you take good care of the ball or you turn it over. But we're going to get into the weeds of like how you separate like what makes a player better on offense, what makes a player better on defense, what drives winning basketball, what leads to championships. And there's so many different directions we can go into with that. So Sean, I'll let you kick us off. Like, where do you want to start this conversation? I just kind of threw you like, that's not even a lob. That's a backwards, like falling out of bounds corner. Like you got to land this. Where do we start this conversation?
Where my mind immediately went to is what makes, if you want to like kind of break it down by archetype, meaning like, okay, what makes a primary creator better than another one, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's actually a great place to start, because I was thinking about it in my head, and kind of my idea going into this was like, hypothetical scenario. You can have two players who, and maybe a big part of this discussion is like everything the box score misses, right? Because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like obviously, like I said, I'm not a huge NFL guy, but like depending on the position you're looking at, like if you look at a quarterback and there's like these barometers that you hit, it's like, okay, look at your passing yards, look at your passing touchdowns, look at your rushing yards, look at how much you turn the ball over, look at your completion percentage. Like if you never watched a football game, I feel like you can get a pretty good gauge on who the best quarterbacks are. And obviously there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, like who your weapons are, how good your offensive line is, what your coach is looking to do with you as a quarterback. But like, or maybe a better example is a hitter in baseball. Like you know how good a hitter is based on if they get on base or not. Like it really is that simple a lot of the times. Whereas like in basketball, if you just looked at a box score, you wouldn't know anything about the player. Like you have to really get into the weeds of the stats to figure out how this player plays and how they differentiate from one another. And all that's to say, two players can have the exact same stat line and have a wildly different impact on their team. So let me give you just made up example. These aren't real players, but let's say two guys average 25 points and 7 assists a game. They both turn it over 3 times and they both have exactly a 60% true shooting, right? 25 points, 7 assists, 3 turnovers, 60% true shooting. But one of them consistently has a better plus minus than the other despite playing on similar teams with similar spacing. How's that possible? Well, let's say one of them's a great 3-point shooter, the other one's a bad 3-point shooter. Automatically you get a difference in the spacing value because when they don't have the ball, they're getting respected on a different level. It opens things up for the rest of the team. Let's say one of the 7 assist guys, 5 of his assists come at the rim. And the other guy, 1 of his assists comes at the rim. That means you are getting a higher return on investment when you pass the ball because you're creating layups, the most efficient shot in basketball. Let's say one guy's touching the ball 80 times and getting 25 points and 7 assists. Another guy's doing it in 60 touches. That means there's so many more touches to go around to the rest of the team where you can continue to create great offense. And that's kind of where my mind goes, because it's like, even when you break it down into archetypes, like you can get players with very similar stat lines that just have wildly different impacts. And maybe a good example of that is like, go back to 2022. In the regular season specifically, if you just like went stat for stat, did like a stat head rundown comparison of like Luka Doncic and Trae Young, it's like very similar players. Like both like 28 or 29 points, both 9 or 10 assists, both around that 60% true shooting, both shooting a bunch of threes, getting to the line a ton, but like wildly different players with wildly different impacts. And that's what's so fascinating about basketball to me. It's just like there's so many different ways to drive value. And even if you produce the exact same box score as another player in the same role, you can be 3 notches ahead of him.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Luke, if we're just comparing those two, using those two as the example, both guys in that year around 30 and 10, basically, whether it's on a per game basis, but we'll just go with that. Both guys around 30 and 10, easily Trae's best offensive season as a half court engine, but it's still not the same value offensively that Luka generates because Luka's a better driver and finisher around the rim. He's going to get to the free throw line more. Rim assists, I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I would imagine they are both at least fairly comparable at their, with rim assists, and they're both going to have a decently high amount of turnovers. But Luka also being at 6'7", and this again, this is maybe even expanding upon the conversation on how the box score is. You have to look further inside the stats and figure out players' impact. Granted, teams weren't really doing it back then, but because Luka's 6'7", 240 or whatever he is, and Trae Young's 5'11", 140, and that's pretty disrespectful, but you get the point of my comparison there. That opens up a problem for the defense in terms of the coverage they can use, where Trae, and again, granted, you didn't see it as much in 2022 until they ran into Miami, In 2022, Atlanta, I mean, you can just switch Trae Young pick and rolls, and okay, now you immediately create a defensive advantage for yourself. Where, okay, Luka's 6'7", 240, you can't really switch it. You play drop, that's a depth sense. You put someone on the ball, you can make every single pass. So I think that's a good comparison to kind of start off with, because one, there's the statistical difference that you can easily look into, but also like from a coverage standpoint, you can see how, yeah, okay, these two guys both average 30 and 10, but Luka's 30 and 10 makes him an MVP candidate, while Trae Young's 30 and 10 makes him an All-NBA third team candidate.
Yeah, that's a great point. And specifically, I think where you see a lot of these differences is in the playoffs when teams try to do different things defensively and try to go to different coverages. Because, like, another example is teams will try to make Trae Young force him into making tough passes over the top of defenses, which he struggles to do because of his height. He can't see over the top of the defense. Whereas, like, if you try to force that with Luka, he's just spraying it to the corner every single time, and it's just corner three, corner three, corner three, because you can't force him to make reads over the top, because that's his best read, is the skip pass over the top. And another example is, like, where the scoring on the floor comes from, because it's like there are numbers that capture these things, but it's like you got to look into the numbers beneath the numbers, where it's like, yes, they both score 30 points, but how many of Luka's points are coming in the post? How many of them are coming in isolation? How many of them are coming out of pick and roll? Because you look at, like, Trae Young's scoring profile, and it's, like, overwhelmingly pick and roll scoring. Like, he turns the corner, that's where he gets his scoring. Whereas Luka is like, yes, I can do all that in pick and roll, but also I'm going to get 8 points in isolation, 5 points in the post. And these things just add more variety to the offense. And then you get a series like 2022 against Phoenix, where Luka's just bullying those wings in the post over and over and over again. You don't even have to run pick and roll anymore, because you can just run through Luka in the post, and he's going to give you, 30 points in the first half of a game 7? Like, yeah, it's absurd. But these are the things that, like, even just separate players of the same archetype. It gets even harder to separate value when it's like, okay, let's compare Luka and everything he does as an on-ball creator and all of this stuff, and then let's go look at Steph Curry, who operates in a completely different manner in every facet of the game, but they're both point guards. Like, they play the same position, but you could not find a bigger stylistic difference. So then how do you weed out the value of everything that happens on the court? You can't. You simply can't. It's not possible. That's why we haven't solved basketball yet. And never will. We never will solve basketball. Like, these numbers, these catch-all metrics will try to hone in on all these things, and they can give you a good idea, like a good baseline of what you're looking for in a basketball player. But even then, like, you're barely grasping the picture. And let me give you a scenario, another scenario, again, completely hypothetical. Let's go back to the Mavs team before the Luka trade, right? And let's assume they're operating at full strength. And I want you to get this picture in your head. I wish I had a whiteboard. I wish I had a virtual whiteboard I could, like, draw this play on, like I'm coaching you or something. But I know you can visualize. We've done this before. We used to do this in the playoffs. Luka Doncic is on the left wing, top of the key area, we'll say, and he's running a pick and roll going left with Gafford, right? He's running a pick and roll going left with Gafford.
So he's going towards the sideline?
He's going towards the sideline.
Okay.
In that corner, on the sideline with him, is Klay Thompson. On the opposite wing, we'll say is Najee Marshall. We'll say it's Najee Marshall, and then we'll say weak side corner is Kyrie Irving, right? So what happens is Luka comes off the screen. Gafford lands a huge screen, right? Let's just say he lands a massive screen. And Luka turns the corner, has an advantage, so the big has to trap. Luka gets trapped, right? Klay's man hugs him because you don't want to help off of Klay one pass away. Kyrie's man also hugs him because you don't want to leave Kyrie in the weak side corner. He's a wide open three for Kyrie is like a 45% shot. So Luka, actually, Najee Marshall's defender from the slot wing is going to tag the roll. He's going to commit all the way to Gafford, and they're going to let Najee Marshall take the three, right? Najee Marshall gets a wide open three. He makes it. On that play, the credited box score stats are 1 Luka Doncic assist and 1 Najee Marshall three-pointer. Zero credit for Daniel Gafford setting a bone-crushing screen that created the initial advantage. Zero credit to Klay Thompson for his defender not leaving him. Zero credit to Kyrie Irving for his man not being able to tag. Where those numbers or hypothetical numbers do show up is on the final score. Kyrie Irving's spacing helped lead to 3 points for the team. Klay Thompson's spacing helped lead to 3 points for the team. Gafford's screen and roll helped lead to 3 points for the team. And so what we're trying to do when we assess an individual player's impact or value is how many of those plays do you contribute to on the scoreboard? That's essentially the goal of basketball on both sides of the ball. So on offense, the entire goal of the sport is how many points can I add to my team's offense? And on defense, how many points can I take away from the other team's offense? And so it's like, yeah, there were no box score stats for Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson spacing, but if those players are Russell Westbrook and Draymond Green, the play never materializes or exists in the first place. And that's kind of where my head's at regarding like how do we like get a depiction on how much these plays mean in throughout the scheme of a game.
Where do you start the conversation off from that point? Because you can't.
Like, you can't define it. There's no number for it.
Right.
But it's like, it clearly is important. And that's why, we're always bringing up stuff like offensive rating when you're on the court and stuff like that, because there's a clear signal. Like, if you make enough of these winning plays, your team is going to be better with you on the court. Your team's going to be good with you on the court. But it's like, then how do you separate the difference between like two players who both have that impact? Like, how do you separate the difference between what Klay Thompson did and what Kyrie Irving did on that play? They both just stood there. They both got guarded on the perimeter. But it's like, are they both going to have that same type of attention throughout 75 possessions of a game that they're on the court? And then again, how valuable is that impact if Najee Marshall makes 30% of his threes? Or if he makes 40% of his threes? Like, what if that third guy was Derek White instead of Najee Marshall? And then it's like, oh,
Bro's
wow.
just creating an offense that's going to score 180 points per 100 possessions.
Yeah, basically. But I guess, like, yeah, what I'm getting at, and maybe I'm just asking you an unanswerable question to kind of prove the impossibility of what we're doing today, but, like, that's kind of just where my head's at, where it's like I'm thinking about all of these little things that happen on the court that you don't really think about unless you're watching away from the ball. And you miss 99% of basketball if you don't rewind possessions over and over and over again. Because there's just so much that's happening, like a weak side action or a second side screen that like you never even register happened to occupy the weak side defender. But then on the inverse, so much more happens on defense with communication, rotations, perfect switches. And we try to break it down into like categories like your rim protection, your point of attack defense, your screen navigation. But even that barely scratches the surface of how much is happening in today's NBA. And it's just like, yeah, you can't watch 1,000 possessions of every player every season. So how do you bridge the gap between reading into the box score, reading into the numbers, and then also like trying to watch as much as you can on each of these players and getting a grasp on their tendencies?
To your point about like the screen navigation, the rim protection, the off-ball defense, stuff like that, barely scratches the surface. That again goes back to my point about how like basketball, whether it's at the NBA level, the college level, European, high school even to a certain extent, has never been in a more advanced state from a multitude of different things. Whether it's the players, I think the players have never been more skilled, they've never been better. And I think I could say that comfortably at all three levels. You have freshmen at Power 5 or even mid-major levels dropping 40 points in games in tough environments. Illinois has a guard that drops 40 on the road at Purdue. Kingston Flemings for Houston drops 43 on the road at Texas Tech. Cam Boozer feels like he's dropping 30 every other night. AJ DeBanza drops 45 or 43 or whatever on like 63% true shooting the other night, which is just absurd. And then obviously at the NBA level, I mean, and this is why we've been saying for the longest time, like, dude, okay, think of the worst team in basketball right now. maybe outside like and even Sacramento has like some fun things about them, but like, okay, most people would probably say the Wizards or the Nets. I don't think you can say the Hornets anymore. If you say Charlotte, you're pretty clearly not watching basketball.
No.
But okay, let's say the Wizards, right? That Wizards Hornets game the other night, I don't care what inside the NBA has to say about it. From a basketball sicko like concepts or just young players on the floor, that game was fun as hell. I don't care what anybody tells you. Trey Johnson, and okay, for example, I think part of it of what makes the communication and what makes defenses so much more complicated than what it used to be, because, and this is not me like trying to throw shade at like the good old days, if you will, but, and this isn't entirely true, but to a certain extent, if you rewind like a decade ago, the NBA was mostly two-man action, where, okay, we're going spread pick and roll, or we're going post up to our big, we had one that could do that consistently. You'll have your iterations, you'll have your motion-heavy offense, like the Warriors or the Spurs. But for the most part now, in college, in the NBA, and definitely in Europe, it's a lot of three-man, four-man action where, okay, cool, we're going. It's not just generic spread pick and roll. It's spread pick and roll, but on the weak side, it's going to be an empty flare to where we're eliminating the help. Or we're going page action, which is rip screen into the dribble handoff. You see this a lot with Denver, and basically every NBA team has adopted it. Or the zoom action and stuff like that. Just, there is now more movement, even from your more spread. The Lakers, this maybe just because of the first thing that comes to my head, the Lakers are probably the most spread pick and roll team in the league. Currently, it's because they have Luka. The other team that would probably come, like, the Clippers are pretty spread pick and roll heavy still. Harden, Zoo.
OKC too. OKC runs a lot of pick and roll with Shea.
OKC.
Although it's not really traditional. Like, they'll put a guard in the dunker. They'll have Chet pick and pop.
Yeah, I'm thinking like as much traditional as possible.
Yeah.
Like,
it's probably the Lakers. It's got to be the Lakers.
Timberwolves.
Timberwolves run a lot of traditional pick and roll.
Yeah. I can't even, the other team that came to my mind for a brief second that I can't even say is factual is the Pistons, because they do a lot of three-man action with Duncan in the action.
Yeah.
Or
Cavs run a lot of, I mean, I would say they run a lot of spread pick and roll, but they also do a lot of like double drag concepts and
exactly
all that stuff.
Yeah. So, okay, even, and I was using those teams like the Lakers, right? Okay, the Lakers are probably the most spread traditional pick and roll centric offense in the league. Okay, but even then, like, they're adding more three-man actions out of than your traditional spread pick and roll heavy offense would. And granted, they don't have to, because they have Luka Doncic, who's the walking advantage creator that he is. So not only do you have the evolving offensive concepts and play style shifting, the skill players are only getting better. So now when you have a healthy Pacers team, Tyrese Halliburton is an advantage creator in and of itself. But you combine that with modern basketball and the floor, not even just the floor spacing, the athletic rim threats, the pick and pop bigs, the second side creators. Now you have a creative Rick Carlisle offense to add on top of that. Okay, cool. Now, like, to your point, it's hard to just leave this down to, all right, cool, do we have perimeter, do we have point of attack defense, do we have off-ball help, do we have rim protection? Because it's not just guarding Halliburton and Pascal Siakam two-man game. It's, okay, we're going to guard this early drag ball screen from, we'll go up from last year's team, with Halliburton and Miles Turner, but once he comes off of it, he's immediately passing it to Nembhard coming off a pin down in early offense. Then he's going to attack the middle of the floor gap and kick it out. And now, oh crap, we are like scrambling with 16 seconds left on the shot clock. The possession literally just started. So that might be like my own side tangent, because I think that part of what makes it hard to identify, like what you were saying, like the Kyrie and Clay example, right? And in that example, it's just regular spread pick and roll. It's Luka going to the left side of the floor. It's Gafford rolling towards the two side of the floor with Kyrie spaced on the corner and Najee spaced out the wing. And I mean, okay, sure, there's like, you could peel switch it and neutralize the advantage. Sure, there's defensive stuff that you could do to kind of try to attack that, but I think the point is, at the end of the day, The skill players are getting better, and offenses are in a more advanced spot in terms of putting the defense in a less than advantageous spot than probably ever, if that makes sense.
Yeah. To your point about the offensive evolution, I got a question for you. Over the last month, which team do you think is running the most pick and rolls?
Which team do I think is running the most pick and rolls? Is it a team we mentioned already?
It is.
Is it OKC?
No. It is I'll give you one more guess. Redemption.
Clippers?
No. It's the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets are running the most pick and rolls in the league. Guess who their most used screener is in those actions?
Ryan Kalkbrenner.
No, it's Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller.
I was going to go guard
second.
next.
It's Brandon Miller and then Concanipple, and then it's Moussa Diabate, then it's Miles Bridges, and it's like, okay, what the heck is happening here? So what the Hornets have done, we've kind of talked about the offensive evolution of the league multiple times on this show, and there have been a lot of concepts, like even going back before our time on the show, right? Before we even started the podcast, we saw the 3-point revolution. That started happening in the 2010s. Like the 3-point revolution, we're going to get up as many threes as possible. And we've actually talked about a lot, like with Boston, about how many threes they get up and stuff like that. So we've seen the 3-point revolution. The other kind of like offensive developments that we've seen over recent years are lifting the big, like spacing the big out and putting them on the top of the key so that you don't have a rim protector in position. Or in the slot, yep. You've got playing with pace. That's an obvious one, just playing faster, getting into your actions quicker. And we've seen offensive rebounding, the value of second chance opportunities, and like a team like Houston completely dominating the offensive glass and winning the offensive efficiency battle by just getting more attempts than the other team. What the Hornets are doing right now is they are shooting a boatload of threes. Yeah. Because they have so many good shooters. Like they have Khan, LaMelo, Miller, the guys I basically just already mentioned. They have one of the best offensive rebounders on the planet in Moussa Diabate, who is currently averaging, I think, 8 offensive rebounds per 100 possessions. So that's like 6 per 75. So if he was playing like 30 or so minutes a game, he'd be averaging like 5.5 offensive rebounds a game. And what they do is they just have that big, whether it's Diabate or Kalkbrenner or sometimes PJ Hall, they'll just have that guy hang in the dunker spot, and they'll empty the wing, they'll put 2 shooters in the corners, and they will just spam guard-to-guard screening action. And it's like, what do you do? Like, if you switch, now whoever it is, LaMelo or Miles Bridges has a mismatch. If you don't switch, Concaniple's slipping out for a 43% three-point shot, or he's slipping into a 60% floater. If the big steps up to Concanipple in the short roll, or Brandon Miller or whoever it is, then you have either a lob or an offensive rebound for a putback. And the Hornets are like 2nd or 3rd in the league in offensive rebounds per game. They're like 2nd in 3-point attempts per game. They move the ball extremely well. And it's this super innovative offense where it's like they pull stuff from what the Pacers do, they pull stuff from what the Rockets do, all these different teams. Oh, you want to add to that?
No, I was just going to add to that really quickly by adding a stat. I mean, the Hornets over the past 15 games, number 1 offense in the league, number 2 offensive rebounding team in the league in terms of offensive rebounding percentage, number 4 in true shooting percentage. And by the way, playing at like a middle of the pack pace, if we're just going actually below middle of the pack pace or bottom 5 in pace, but they're just so otherworldly efficient. To your point about the threes in the past 15, the Hornets are shooting 41.2 threes per game. And if you were to make that on a per 100 possession basis, the Hornets, okay, I'm going to toss it back to you, is loading. So yeah, go ahead.
It's going to be similar because I think they average like 99 possessions a game. So it's going to be similar.
43 threes.
43, yeah. So that's what's super interesting. It's like, think about everything that's happening on the court and how each of it has its own value. Like Concanipple screening has so much value because you have to worry about the shooting gravity, you have to worry about him slipping into the short roll, you have to worry about him just landing a screen. Right, LaMelo Ball turning the corner on a drive and then doing what he does as a playmaker, which shout out to
Notice how many
LaMelo.
actions that is, like as opposed to, or how many different choices you have to be worried about as a defense and hope that you choose right, as opposed to just being generic, space the floor out, LaMelo Ball and Moussa Diabate spread pick and roll.
Right. And also, there's just ways to manipulate the spacing in today's game that we didn't see in previous eras. Like, I was specifically looking at a Hornets, and remember when the Hornets beat the Thunder by 27 points?
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks ago? Yeah. So, I was wondering, I was like, how did they easily hang 124 on these Thunder? And it came down to two specific concepts. One was they had Con Knipple in the weak side corner for every action. And what that means is if you want to pre-switch Chet and keep him on the baseline, he's closing out to Con Knipple. Not easy to do. He couldn't help. There were so many situations where Con Knipple like either stressed Chet or just beat a closeout on a long. Because even when it's not Chet, the Thunder like to send the low man early. That's just what they do. And so Con Knipple was just eating in that weak side corner. The other thing they did was they know that OKC relies on Chet for the bulk of their rim protection when Hartenstein's not out there, and they rely on him even more for rebounding duties. So what they were doing is they were trying to get Chet switched onto a guy like LaMelo. There's one specific play I can think of that was in the first quarter where LaMelo comes off a high ball screen top of the key from Diabate because Chet's on Diabate, and Chet switches out. LaMelo immediately swings the ball to the weak side where it's like, I think it's Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges. Then they do their guard-to-guard screening action with Diabate in the dunker, and Lou Dort is trying to keep Diabate off the offensive glass, while Chet is just 30 feet out guarding LaMelo. Because you can't leave LaMelo open because he's going to make, like in the last month and a half, he's like 42% from three. Let me give you a guess, actually. I pulled the numbers because I'm working on a Hornets video, and I've been watching all of their offensive possession.
Stop.
I have to. It's beautiful offense. They are my favorite team to watch right now.
All right, well, when I do mine, don't say I'm copying you, but keep going.
I won't. You'll probably get it out before me, too. That's the worst part. LaMelo Ball, guess how many attempts, 3-point attempts per 100 possessions he's averaged since December 12th. So, like, last month and a half. How many 3-point attempts per 100 LaMelo is shooting?
8.
17.
Okay. I would, yeah. All right.
17? Is that not absurd? He's shooting like 42% from three on like 13 attempts a game in the last month and a half. Absurd shooter. But again, like, his actual overall numbers, like LaMelo's overall numbers on the season are like 20 points and 7 assists a game, minus 3% relative true shooting. But then every lineup he's in has like a 122 offensive rating. So it's like, okay, clearly LaMelo is doing something on the court that is contributing to the Hornets playing winning basketball. And then you dive into the film and it's like, oh my gosh, it's all of these guard-to-guard screening actions. It's all of these quick decisions to get off the ball. It's all of the spacing he provides as a 40% volume three-point shooter with that quick release. It's the way he pushes the pace. It's the way he finds those guys in the interior for dunks and layups. And it's like, that's not on the box score. It just simply is not on the box score. And it clearly has a major value on the Hornets playing good offense.
So I put together a list, and I got to thinking after we were like talking about like the Hornets offensive style and stuff like that. Who would you say are the 5 biggest like offensive innovators over the past like 5 to 10 years or so? I have a list. I have 7 names technically.
5 to 10 years. Okay, so are you including Mike D'Antoni in that?
He would probably have.
Or is it like after D'Antoni? Because D'Antoni is like probably the most revolutionary offensive coach ever. But like after D'Antoni, we'll say like after D'Antoni. Okay,
it's like
did you include Steve Kerr?
2020. Steve Kerr, I think that's actually going to be the unpopular opinion, I feel like. When in reality, like, okay, we can have like question marks about Steve Kerr's development or like their roster decisions and how they've handled the back half of the Warriors dynasty. But it's still like pretty clear that Steve Kerr is one of the offensive innovators.
So if you include Steve Kerr, I would include D'Antoni because I feel like they come from that same like. Although D'Antoni was more revolutionary with the Suns, so he's a weird one. He's kind of just like a. We'll ignore D'Antoni. So Steve Kerr.
Here, I'll read off the list.
Wait. I was gonna say my mind immediately went to Rick Carlisle and Joe Mazzulla were the first two that came to mind.
Carlisle was on here. I went the whole Celtics trio. Like it's just like they obviously all like took bits and pieces from each other and like are all really, really good offensive minds. Missoula, Hardy, and Charles Lee. It's like no coincidence that those three are like three of my favorite offenses to watch. Yeah. Even though like Missoula ball can get extreme sometimes, for sure.
I was gonna say, don't spoil this for me because I want to keep going. I feel like I can get some more of these. Did you have Popovich on there for his beautiful game offense, or is that
Pop?
Yeah, past era. I wasn't sure where he did the cutoff. Did you have Kenny Atkinson?
I did not. I thought about him though. There's two more names though. So we had the Celtics trio: Steve Kerr, Carlisle.
Is it Spoelstra?
I didn't include Spo. That's like fine.
I was going to say, it would be if specifically if you went for the angle, and I guess maybe this is more like Tomas Isolo, Taylor Jenkins, but like if you went for the angle of like the no ball screen offense that we're starting to see teams run.
The only reason why I wouldn't include that one yet is because like maybe it's just Memphis just flaming out. I got to see this one have a little bit more success in the playoffs first.
That's fair. Okay. Slot concepts, big in the slot concepts. Did you include Quinn Snyder?
Quinn Snyder was on here.
Quinn Snyder, and maybe I'm a little bit crazy for this one, but like the running everything through the big, grab and go, fast pace, lateral movement, Mike Brown.
No, say like you're on the right track.
I'm on the right track, but it's not Mike Brown. Who what is it? Michael Malone, like David Adelman?
David Adelman.
Okay,
because David Adelman was the offensive guy for Denver.
Yeah, okay. So I was like, I know you're not saying Michael Malone. Yeah, David Adelman. So yeah, similar concepts to like what Mike Brown was doing with the Kings. Is that the whole list?
That was my list. Like, if I'm thinking like the best offensive minds over the past 5-ish years or so, that's kind of where my list would start. Because then, like, OKC does a lot of the same guard to guard, like flat stuff in the middle of the floor. But like, I also think about that a lot with Missoula. Especially when they're healthy, it's like Tatum getting a middle of the floor guard to guard screen from Derek White or Pam Pritchard or Sam Hauser. So that's where my list would personally be. There's some other really, really good offensive minds. Like what Jordan Ott's doing in Phoenix is low key really, really cool to watch.
Yes.
Yes. Kenny Atkinson, obviously, like the past, I mean, this year hasn't been great for Cleveland, but like last year specifically was awesome. Even what he was doing in Brooklyn, low key wasn't like bad, and he very clearly had a really helpful run in Golden State. And then also, I'm just gonna use this as a chance to again hype up Charles Lee. Charles Lee is awesome, and Charlotte is on an upward trajectory.
100%. I 100% agree. I was gonna make a joke about Doc Rivers innovating like the putting a big in the middle of the floor and having him face up, which is what he did to both Embiid and Giannis's offense, and then they both immediately had like GOAT tier offensive big seasons. All I'm saying, respect Doc. No, in all seriousness,
respect Glenn Rivers.
Yeah, respect Glenn, dude. In all seriousness, though, like you brought up specifically Derek White setting a screen, a guard to guard screen. And I want to talk about Derek White specifically because I think one of these concepts I'm talking about with like the box score telling a lie and like the value of having a guard screen is really important as it pertains to Derek White. So I don't know if you saw, but recently an interview came out. I believe it was an interview with Derek White where Draymond Green said on the Draymond Green podcast after a game of I think it was game 1 of the 2022 finals, Derek White had 5 or 6 threes, and Draymond said on the podcast, that's not going to win them the series. He said, like yes, he had 5 or 6 threes, but he's not going to do it again. That's not going to win them this championship. And Derek White took that personal, was like, I can never let teams disrespect me as a shooter again. And then he just starts trending upwards as a shooter every year, right? 2023, he shoots 38% from 3 on 5 attempts a game. 2024, 40% on 7 attempts a game. 2025, he gets up to 9 attempts a game, but dials it back down to like 38.5%, which 38.5% on 9 attempts a game is just an elite shooter. Like, that does not happen often. This year, he's taking the exact same amount of threes as last year, 9.1, but he's shooting 32.3%. He's down 6% on his three-point percentage, right? And one would look at that, the average person would look at that, I would look at that, even gut instinct, and be like, Derek White's having a down year. Like, Derek White's not shooting the ball as well. He's just not as good offensively this season. But then I really was thinking about it, and I was like, well, he's on the court for 77 possessions a game or something like that. Like, he plays a lot of minutes. So let's say he's on the court for 77 possessions a game. Do you think defenses have responded to the threat of his shot differently because he's shooting 32% instead of 38%? He's being guarded the exact same way as he would be if he was shooting 40%. And I was like, because you look at these misses where he's shooting 32%, and it's like, the defense is wanting to close out. They are doing a hard closeout. They are not letting him get open on the perimeter. If he sets a screen and flashes out, they're worried about that. It'll create driving lanes for Jaylen Brown. If he's in the slot, he's being hugged. There's not as much help at the nail because he's typically a 40% volume three-point shooter. And I was like, so yes, for those 9 possessions where he actually takes the shot, only 3 of them are going in instead of 3.5. So you're getting like half of a less of a 3 a game made on the scoreboard. But then the other 69 possessions that he's on the court, he has the exact same impact. So when you look at the course of a game and how it influences the scoreboard, the 69 possessions where he's being guarded like a 40% shooter are so much more important to Boston's offense than the 9 where he actually takes a shot. And also the same thing applies to Steph Curry in 2022. He had a shooting slump where he shot like 34% for 2 months from 3. And his offensive impact metrics were the exact same. His offensive on-off was the exact same. His offensive rating on the court was the exact same as it was when he was shooting 42%, because the value of Steph shooting isn't that he's going to make 4 or 5 threes a game. It's that the defense is going to panic to make sure he doesn't get 17 threes up a game. And he only gets up 11 or 12. And what's crazy is Steph Curry does that, like has that season where he ends up shooting like 38%, I think, on the season, or 39% or something like that, like clear down year shooting the ball from 3. Golden State wins like 50-something games. They're clearly an elite team, and they go on to win the championship. Steph, I believe, finished that season 7th in MVP voting. If he shot 42% from 3, and his true shooting percentage was higher, as a result of that, he probably is an MVP finalist. Or at worst, 4th behind Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid. So it's absurd to think about how our perception of like what's valuable changes based on what the stat sheet is telling us. But in reality, Steph's value, the difference was negligible because teams were still panicking. Teams were still having those miscommunications that lead to layups, those breakdowns. And I think you look around the league, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be like a league-wide, like a personal change where he goes from 38% to 32% and his value stays the same. But also, like, not all 40% three-point shooters are created equally. Not all screeners are created equally. Not all rim protectors are created equally. Another great example I'll go to is the Spurs slashers have had a field day going up against OKC because they figured out that if they go into the body of Chet Holmgren, they can move him. And they can, like, create layups still, even though he's one of the best rim protectors we've seen in the whole century. Whereas you can't move Gobert like that. Even if you do move Wembanyama like that, he's still going to swallow you up with his length. And it's just, I think there are little things that happen on every possession, on every game, of every archetype, every team. And it's just like, there's so many little things that influence the final score of a basketball game that you don't think about. Even to this day, like, I'm looking for these things, and I probably miss 75% of them on every watch.
And I mean, if I'm just using the Derek, first off, there's 2 main points I'm going to respond to. One, that's why, like, one of my biggest pet peeve with shooters in the modern NBA is you being a 40% three-point shooter, but only shooting like 3 or 4 attempts per game. Specifically, if you're a non-big.
Say the name. Say the name. I know exactly who you're thinking of.
We don't have to
I know exactly who came to mind when you said that. Say the name.
We don't have to do that. But, like, okay, to your point, and I'm assuming, like, that's probably where, like, Draymond was kind of, like, getting at with the Derek White thing. Okay, cool, bro. You hit 5 threes. You averaged 5 a game. Okay, cool beans, bro. Where you shoot the 11 or 10 or whatever, like, LaMelo Ball shooting 13 threes a night. I'm actually going to use LaMelo. LaMelo Ball could be a 34% three-point shooter, shooting 13 threes, and he will, because he's shooting even though he's shooting a lesser percentage, he will have way more shooting gravity than the guy that's shooting 40% from 3 on 4 attempts. Because there's just higher volatility, and oh crap, you get hot, you hit 2 threes in a row. Now this might be the game where you go 8 for 13 from 3, and now you created 24 points, and now you have the additional
That's a really good point because the Hornets played the Lakers not too long ago.
Oh
and
God.
LaMelo took 20 shots and 17 of them were threes. And he shot like 9 for 17 from 3. Like what do you do with that? What do you do with that? That's 27 points from threes.
Yeah, which is absurd. But the second part I was going to kind of talk about was, like, again, even though Derek White is having a down shooting year by all, like, shooting metrics, his relative true shooting percentage dropped by 8%. He went from a plus 3% relative true shooting last season to negative 5.3% this year. 3-point percentage, like you mentioned, already dropped by 6%. But if you go by Darko or DPM, it's still relatively the same in terms of his on-court playing value compared to last season, which kind of goes to show you, again, like you said, like, okay, the box score would say, again, this is very clearly a down year for Derek White, despite the fact the Celtics are Eastern Conference contenders, which I don't think if you told either one of us, I was very low on Boston entering the season.
I was so 50-50 on them. I was like, this could go one way or the other, and they just went the other way and went fully above that. They're like, oh no, we're actually Hugo Gonzalez is going to win Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie with a plus 30 net rating, and we're actually going to be a 55-win team, and then we're going to get Tatum back and win the championship. So
yeah,
that other part didn't happen yet.
Speaking of, does Boston buy at the deadline?
No, I'm rocking with this lineup. I'm rolling with exactly what we have. I say I'm not a Boston fan. I don't know why I described it like that. I'm not a Boston Celtics fan. That's the root of my like joking Lakers hate with you. Every episode is just like I'm a secret Boston Celtics. I'm a double agent.
You're a secret Celtics fan. You're gonna bring up 27-24. Or was it 27-21? I actually forgot now.
It's 24. Don't undershoot it. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, the Boston Celtics should buy. They should get Rudy Gobert, 27 and 24.
Three-peat on the way. Rudy's gonna go out on top.
Isn't it crazy? And not to cut you off or like cut off your point. I don't even know if you were still making a point. We're already so far gone from it. Can we like give myself a round of applause for making it this far into an episode about not valuing the box score and not gassing up Rudy Gobert? Like I'm improving. I'm in recovery, dude. We took a 2.5 week hiatus and I'm recovering. And now I talk about Derek White instead of Rudy Gobert. So that's a good development from the show here.
So Rudy Gobert's not top 5 on your MVP ballot.
He's not. He might be. He might be. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with team concepts, like offense, defense concepts, like spacing, rotations, and how that like is missed on the box score, or how it drives value, like what the most important qualities are in terms of? I think one thing actually that I want to add, and this is kind of a moot point, but like the goal of a coach, right, is to create an offense that, or an offense and defense. Doesn't just apply to one side of the ball. A great offensive coaching staff doesn't just pick a system and stick with it and be like, I'm going to force all these players to play this system. It's about like building a system out around the talent you have on the court. And I was thinking like the beautiful game Spurs wouldn't work if like instead of Boris Diaw and Manu Ginobili and all these guys, you have like, I'm not going to call out names, but a bunch of poor decision makers and passers who don't know how to like make those reads. It just wouldn't work. The offensive.
Whoops, my bad.
What'd you say? What?
Nothing. Keep going.
I didn't even hear what you said. I'm gonna let that slide because I didn't hear it. But like same motion offense, Golden State. Like you think that system would work if Steph didn't exist, or if they didn't have all those passers like Draymond and Iggy for all those years, and Steph and Clay running around. Same thing's happening with the Hornets. Charles Lee, he builds the system out because they've got shooters, they've got good decision makers, and they've got a ton of passers. And then they have an elite offensive rebounder, so keeping him near the basket adds value. A great coach builds a system out around these players, right? But I do think there's an added value if you're the type of player who can mold into a bunch of different roles that make it easier for your teammates to fit into the system that they excel in. So an example is like Jokic. Jokic can play a heavy spread pick and roll offense as the big man. He can play a slot offense as a spacer. He can play in the pinch post, or he can operate as the ball handler and do the triple handoff stuff. And it's like, so no matter what team is around him, you're going to be able to build out an offensive system that Jokic excels in. Whereas, like, and I don't want to harp on the Luka point, but if you have Luka on your team, you are going to run a lot of spread pick and roll because that's clearly just where he's at his best. Like, he's not as valuable in any other play type. And so it's like, then you have to dot the three-point line with shooters. You're almost incentivized to get ball handlers off the court because you want shooters in that, or defenders in their place rather. And I just think there is like a sort of value that comes with being able to mold your game to the team around you. That kind of you like that can't even be captured in lineup data. Like that's just something you have to visually like conceptualize because there's no number for like every number we do have is within the context of your own team. It tells us nothing about how you would be if the team was different. It's basically what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And again, like you said, like why it is so hard to kind of like characterize sometimes and really point to what the value is for an individual player on either side of the floor. And
so I guess another point I wanted to bring up, and maybe this is where we finish it off if there's nothing else to add here. The closest we can get ever to figuring out how valuable a player is on the court is to literally sort out
watch the game.
What were you about to say?
Watch the game? Oh, my bad.
Well, watch the game. Okay. Yes and no. Because watching the game, yes, is the best way to get a gauge on what drives value on the court. Like, going back to that scenario I brought up of, like, the Mavericks spread pick and roll thing. We can visually see, like, okay, the Kyrie spacing has value. The Klay Thompson spacing has value. The bone-crushing screen has value. But there's no number attached to it. Like, there's no, like, we don't know how valuable that is over the course of 75 possessions or over the course of an entire game. So what I was getting at is, like, the only way to get a number for how valuable these things on the court are is to dive into the lineup data, sort out every possible variable, every variation of every lineup, and be like, okay, what produces good offense and what doesn't? So, like, again, made-up example, if you went to the Mavs team, that Mavs team I'm referencing, and you just saw that every single permutation of every lineup that featured Klay Thompson on it had this crazy offensive signal, like 125 offensive rating every time. And then when he's off the court, it's like 118 every time. Then it's like, okay, Klay Thompson is adding 7 points to this offense. That's just like how you would deduct it down. But it's impossible to do that because of sample size issues, because how can one possibly sort out every single lineup? Like, how do you actually do that? Like, play-by-play stats, obviously, and websites like DataBall help us do those things, but again, you're never going to be able to. And then also, like, what about the other factors? What about the lineup the other team has on the court? What about the momentum of the game? Like, if the game is 70-70 going into the fourth quarter, your influence on the scoreboard is way more important than if it's 70-61 or 70-50. And so basically what I'm getting at is the closest we can get to figuring that out is adjusted plus minus data. And I actually just read a great article from Jerry, I want to say his name's Jerry Engelman. I could be butchering that. I know his last name's Engelman. I don't want to butcher that though, so let me make sure. Jeremias Engelman, I believe is his full name. Jerry Engelman. He's one of the creators of RAPM, which is essentially, I read an article where he was kind of breaking it down, and it's been in the NBA sphere for probably over a decade now. Essentially what this number does is it does not look at the box score at all. It's like, because like we've talked about, the box score can lie to you. Two players can put up the exact same stat line and have completely different box scores. So it's like the box score can lie to you, but what can't lie to you is the lineups you're in. So what this RAPM number does is it looks at every single permutation of every single lineup played on the court for both teams, the moment of the game for every game, exactly everything that happens on the court basically to influence the team's score going up on both sides of the ball. And over a 2, 3, 4, 5 year sample, you get a big enough sample of different lineups where like you can kind of start to weed out the outliers and get a clear signal for like, okay, these are the guys who are driving the most value on the court. And obviously this isn't going to tell you who's going to be the most valuable in the playoffs or who's going to be the most valuable if the team situation changed. And also there's like some things that are impossible to weed out. Like one is, for example, Christian Brown plays like all of his minutes with Jokic. So when you look at a number like that just derives from plus minus data and lineup permutations, Christian Brown is going to have like an MVP type of signal because it's like he's just linked with the Jokic numbers. But I don't think we've ever talked about like advanced plus minus data. Like, are you familiar with APM and RAPM and stuff like that? You are? Okay. So, yeah, it's something that's been always in the back of my mind and always helps me with player evaluation. It's a great tool. And I kind of wanted to just, like, reference that very quickly because I don't know if a lot of people are even in tune with what that is or what that means. But let me just put it to you this way. The top 4 players in RAPM over the last 2 seasons, so since the start of last season up until right now, the top 4 players in 2-year RAPM are... Number 1, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It is estimated that he adds plus 7.8 points per 100 to the Thunder, which means if they have a plus 12 net rating, they would estimated have a plus 4 net rating without him. He's adding basically 8 points to the Thunder. Jokic is second, plus 6.7. Giannis is third, plus 6.7. And Wembanyama's fourth, plus 5.2. Which, like, I'm not saying those are the top 4 players. I'm just saying, like, that kind of lines up with how I feel the last 2 years have shaked out. Like, you have Shai, Jokic, and Giannis kind of separating themselves in this group of their own. And then there's a drop-off to Wemby, who's been a monster impact guy. But then you run into some, like, weirder ones. Like, fifth. Who do you think fifth is in RAPM?
I'm looking at it now, so you might as well just say it. I'm looking at it right now.
Dorian Finney-Smith is fifth. Then it's Chet Holmgren, Luke Cornett, Alex Caruso, Pascal Siakam, Franz Wagner, Norman Powell, Jared Allen. You get the idea. Like, these clearly probably... I mean, okay, let me put it this way. None of us think those are the top 10 players in the league, right? None of us think Dorian Finney-Smith is the 5th best basketball player in the league. But maybe... No, I'm playing. But maybe we're missing something. No, in all seriousness, like... These types of numbers, and you have to really weed out, like, okay, what is it that's making Dorian Finney-Smith's numbers look so good compared to, like, other guys that have played on the same teams as him? But, like, I do think this is the closest we'll ever get to, unless there's, like, some kind of, like, robotic AI thing that gets invented in the near future, where it's, like, I think the box score can be valuable, right? Like, we can look at the box, okay, the box score can be helpful in many ways. Like, the box score can help us figure out why the heck Dorian Finney-Smith isn't the 5th best player in basketball. Like, that's where it becomes useful. Statisticians are starting to develop metrics that are basically derived from RAPM, and then they add a tiny little bit of box score influence to, like, weed out those weird ones where, like, Luke Cornett is the 7th best player in basketball, and Dorian Finney-Smith is the 5th best player in basketball. Shout out to Dean Oliver. I don't know when the stat was created, but ESPN net points is one that I've been seeing, like, circulating Twitter a lot. And I was going through the results, and I'm like, this actually seems really good. So, ESPN net points per 100 possessions added to your team. This is fully based off of RAPM, but it adds a little bit of influence from the box score to weed out the outlier role players. And the list right now is number 1, Shai, for this season. Number 2, Jokic. Number 3, Kawhi Leonard. Number 4, Wemby. 5, Luka. 6, Giannis. 7, Jimmy Butler. Actually, shout out Jimmy. I hope he gets better and is, like, kind of back to prime form. I hope that wasn't the end of his prime. I really hope Jimmy's able to bounce back. 8, Donovan Mitchell. 9, Austin Reeves. 10, Anthony Edwards. And I feel like this is where you start to see, like, the stronger, like, yeah, these are the best players in basketball. So I do think... to some extent, numbers can be helpful if you know what to look for, but it's everything in moderation, right? Like, you got to balance it with everything you're seeing on tape, what drives winning basketball. Yeah, even going back to last year, the top players from last year in ESPN net points, Shai, Jokic, and Halliburton were the top 3. Like, that checks out to me. Then it's Giannis, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Jason Tatum, Jared Allen, shout out Jared Allen, Şengün, and Steph Curry. So I do think, like, we're getting closer and closer to being able to attach, and we'll never, like I said, we'll never be able to just attach a number to a player and be like, that's how valuable you are. But when you sort out all of the differences in everything that happens on the tape, all of the screens that are set, all of the spacing concepts, all of the defensive rotations, how much you're picked on defense, how you hold your own, the rebounding value of things, grabbing. One of the reasons Jimmy Butler pops up in these RAPM type metrics is because of his influence on the possession game, which we did an entire episode about, like getting turnovers for your team, not turning the ball over, grabbing offensive rebounds. These things add up in ways that you wouldn't really think about. And so it's like everything in moderation, right? Look at the plus minus stuff, look at the lineup data, look at what drives winning results. Look at the tape, look at everything that's happening on the court away from the ball and with the ball, how that drives value. And then the box score, I feel like it can help. It can help. Like it can separate a 10-point scorer from a 20-point scorer, an offensive focal point from a role player. But everything in moderation. Don't hone in on one thing too much. And yeah, all that's to say, the most valuable players often aren't what you think, and maybe that's where we land the ship.
Max Christie for MVP. All right, if you guys enjoyed episode 71.
Max Christie for, well, I wanted to stop there because it's like a prelude for our next episode. Our next episode, we're going to be selecting our all-stars, our all-star benches. And I can't speak for Sean. I know I'm going to have some hot takes on who I have on my all-star team, and the box score probably wouldn't agree. And I kind of wanted to talk about, like, basically prelude it with talking about everything that happens on the court and what drives value and what indicators to look for before going into, yeah, Rudy Gobert's my MVP. No, let me chill.
Yeah, please chill.
Let me chill. Yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about regarding player value?
No, I think we kind of hammer home a lot of the main talking points and had a pretty, like you said, nerdy but like fun conversation, breaking down different player archetypes, what really contributes to winning in modern basketball in general. And yeah, it won't take us 2 weeks to do the All-Star bench. It'll be way quicker than that. Maybe 2 days.
It'll be way quicker. Now that we're
snowed in.
We're ready to go. We're ready to go. We're actually just gonna split the clip right here and then do our all-star team. We're just gonna same outfits and everything. No, one more point I want to make before we get out of here, which I meant to hit on earlier but didn't, is like we didn't specifically talk about from the individual level what leads to like the largest impact on the scoreboard. Like we talked about like what type of players generally lead to like the highest like plus minus signals and the best lineup data, but like what specific things happen on the court that are the most impactful. Like, and you can kind of generalize these, like on defense, anything that prevents the other team from getting to the paint is just extremely valuable because that's where the most efficient shot in basketball is a layup, right? So on offense, the best thing you can do is make it as easy as possible for all 5 guys on the court to score layups. So you look at guys like Magic Johnson, Steve Nash, they have these overwhelmingly crazy offensive impact signals and crazy team offensive numbers. That's not an accident. They make everyone a threat to score a layup. That reflects on the team's offense. Similarly, if you create a boatload of corner threes, your offense, like LeBron James, creates a lot of open corner threes in his prime. So it's like, yeah, you're going to have a good offense if you have like Shane Battier getting 10 open corner threes in the playoffs. That's going to be good results. Or the 2017 Cavs, where you're dotting the three-point line with Kyrie Irving, J.R. Smith, and Kevin Love, and you're getting a bunch of open corner threes. That's going to be good playoff offense. But then also, like, specifically going back to the point of creating offense in the paint, not only is a layup the most efficient shot in basketball, if you're taking a layup, you are creating a higher chance of drawing a foul, where free throws are also extremely efficient. And also, missed layups and floaters are where the most offensive rebounds come from because there's no more long offensive rebounds. So you're also creating second chance opportunities, which we've talked about how efficient second chance offense is. I would say on offense, the most valuable thing you can do is probably like create offense at the rim, not only for yourself, but the rest of the team. Another sneaky, underrated, like super valuable thing, and we've talked about this a lot too, is playing with pace and playing early in the clock. because it's just harder to create good offense the later into the clock you are. I actually saw a graph earlier this season, and it was like the average points per shot based on how much time was left in the shot clock. And it was like if you take a shot with 21 seconds on the clock, it's probably going in. Whereas like if you take a shot with 1 second on the clock and it's like a shot clock buzzer beater, probably not going in because it's probably a really bad shot. So like there's an inherent value to speeding up your offense and playing faster. And then there's an inherent value decrease from pounding the ball into the court and taking 12 seconds to get into your first action. Is there anything else that comes to mind, like on offense and defense for you that's like, this is extremely valuable, like this always pops up on championship teams? Another one is just like elite isolation creation. Like if you have an elite isolation creator, your team's going to be good on offense. It's just that it's really easy.
I think having elite transition defense.
Yes.
Because it just limits, like, okay, OKC was an elite transition defense. Denver doesn't get a lot of credit for how good transition defensively they were, or just honestly how Denver was a good transition team in general. Now, offensively, they probably didn't run as much, but when they did, they were elite. And then, Jokic plays so high up, so he's able to get back a lot quicker and set up their transition defense. I'm actually curious to see what the correlation is between championship teams and where they rank that transition defense-wise. That'll be something interesting to look into. That's probably for me at least, probably the biggest like defensive thing that kind of pops out, because there's teams that, those Bucks teams that are that Bucks team in 22 that won the finals, they gave up a lot of threes, but they kept you out of the paint. There's also defenses that'll eliminate threes and, are maybe more prone to get, like OKC gives up OKC gives up a lot of threes. I'm trying to think of more like the championship defenses that like take away the three.
Take away the three. I feel like Golden State did that pretty well.
Yeah. And they're going to, but those are kind of the main, like you said, the elite isolation creator in the half court.
Also, like, defensive versatility in general, I feel like it's a big one. Like, because specifically in the playoffs, where it's like you got to be able to respond to different punches that the offense is going to throw at you. Like, we always bring up, like, the ultimate defensive run of 2023 Anthony Davis, where it's like the Warriors basically tried everything you can possibly do to get him out of the paint, and it just didn't work. Like, Anthony Davis was always going to find his way to the paint, or he was going to switch onto the ball and just clamp down. That's a big part of it, too. I think basically anything that generates value in offense, just look for the inverse of it, right? Like, I talked about the influence of creating as much offense at the rim as possible. The defensive equivalent is prevent the offense from creating offense or creating shots at the rim. Transition, push the pace. Defense, you want to slow the offense down and make them eat up clock. Make them do 4 actions before they get a good shot. I think it's basically just like, it's the yin and yang of basketball, where it's like everything good on offense is everything bad on defense. I feel like we covered pretty much everything. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to add. Unless you've got anything else.
Shout out Detroit basketball.
Shout out Detroit. Actually, you forgot to announce the curse. So go ahead and get that off your chest.
Piston fans, I apologize. Actually, no shout out to you guys. I don't want to give you guys the Hoop Venue pod curse that we are officially conning 71 episodes in. If you recall, this calls for a special moment. I have to pick up the mic. Really. A few episodes back, I'm just going to guess and say it was like 5 or so episodes ago. It was around Christmas time. The Thunder were about to play the Spurs twice, back-to-back. And we were so ready. We were about to con. We were saying to Thunder, man, the Thunder have a realistic shot of catching the 73-9 Warriors and, potentially rattling off. I mean, at this point, they were 24-1. They just, maybe 24-2, 25-2. They had just beat the Clippers, I'm going to assume, right around this time. Okay, one loss. Okay, so 24-1. They just beat the Suns by 50, 138-89. And we were saying, this team has a chance to. They had all the defensive metrics. They had the reigning MVP looking to go back to back, and I still think Shea's probably the front runner right now.
Easily still. It's just like, don't overreact. He's still the front runner.
He's still the front runner. Although, and this is where again my Detroit basketball thing comes back up. I'm just saying the Pistons are only 4 games behind the Thunder in the win column, and Cade is averaging 25 and 10, while also
Cade's hooping.
Yeah, Cade's hooping. Anyway, since the 24-1 Thunder, the Thunder are now 37-10. They've now lost back-to-back games for the second time this season. That makes them, since that episode, they're 13-9 since we had that conversation. And so first off, Thunder fans, apologies. Okay, we cursed. We gave you guys the first iteration of the Hoop Venue pod curse. Secondly, I want to add, I think Draymond said something about this on his podcast. This makes the 73-9 Warriors even more impressive. Because what Draymond was talking about on the pod was like, okay, like this is cool and all, but like how much it took out of that Warriors team to like get to 73-9 wins, like the ebbs and flows of an NBA regular season, and you normally see like the January burnout or the pre-trade deadline, pre-All-Star break burnout. I'm like, all right, guys, like this is dragging a little bit. You're right before the March and playoff push, playoff surge. Right before that, you're past the Christmas part of the season, the first part of the season where you're really, really excited to be back. And the Thunder have hit a brick wall. Don't overreact, though, like Tyler said. They're still the favorites to win it all. Shea's still the favorite to win MVP. And they just, I guess in the month of January, they just look more beatable. But I wouldn't put all our eggs into one basket, just count them out. Although, the West is like a gauntlet, dude. The West is nuts.
Yeah, the West is nuts. Speaking of the West, I'm all the way back in on the Clippers. Like, Kawhi looks like an MVP right now. Like, he's playing some of the best basketball of his career, and the Clippers look really, really good. Actually, they're 15-3 in their last 18 games. They were 6-21. And now they're 21-24. That's absurd. And we actually talked about like why some of what the Clippers' issues were. Like we were talking about how a lot of that was fake. So we can actually victory lap that one. We didn't curse the Clippers. We anti-cursed the Clippers, actually. So that's great work on our part, I believe.
Kawhi in the month of January, 29-6-4.
Shit. Hooper, dude. It's the Thunder are still, it is crazy to think about. You know what that podcast was called? The episode?
No, what was it called?
It was titled, "Is This the Greatest Team in NBA History?"
Oh.
And that's what we were talking about. That was the question we asked. And I'm gonna say probably not. I'm gonna say probably not. But they are very, very good. They are very, very good. They're still the best team in basketball, in my opinion. Although, with the way the Nuggets have looked and the like emergence of like Peyton Watson as a legit ball handler and creator, and then like when they get Jokic back, they're gonna be really good. The Nuggets are scary. We definitely need a Thunder and Nuggets playoff series. That'd be like a rematch. That'd be crazy.
This is easily, really quickly, the best. I was about to stop myself. I think it's pretty fair to say this is the best Denver team Jokic has had.
Easily. Yeah, I thought that was. I even thought that going into the season. I was like, this team's better than the 2023 team pretty easily to me. And now they're even like a step above where they were at the beginning of the season. Jamal Murray's playing like an All-NBA. Jamal Murray's playing like an All-NBA second team player right now, like a top 15 type of player. Peyton Watson's really good. Cam Johnson hasn't even panned out yet, and he's very good. Aaron Gordon hasn't been fully healthy, and he keeps having issues. I really hope Aaron Gordon's able to be healthy for the playoffs. Christian Brown hasn't been healthy either. And then they're getting all these contributions from guys like Jalen Pickett, who's had like a 30-point game. Yeah, Spencer Jones is playing very well. And then Valanciunas, too. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a hooper. Like, dude, no, this team's deep. This team's deep, and this team's good. Watch out for Denver, man.
Really quick, just to go back to the RAPM numbers. If you go to offensive RAPM numbers for the past 2 years, number 1's Jokic, number 2 Shea, number 3 is Giannis, number 4 is Steph, number 4 is Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is hooping, and like you said, he's had an all-NBA caliber season.
That's fire, yeah. That's Jamal Murray, then it's Halliburton, and then it's LaMelo Ball, dude. Shout out to LaMelo, dude. LaMelo's having a great season, man. I'm so glad. I'm so glad LaMelo is kind of dispelling the like serious basketball player talks.
I'm glad to be wrong about LaMelo.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he's fun. He's fun, man. He's just a really fun player. And like I said, the Hornets are my favorite team to watch right now, so they're just good vibes.
Yeah.
Anything else for like the seventh time? Anything
I was about to say how many times are we gonna ask that? No, I think we hit everything.
I think we hit everything. Speaking of the Milwaukee Bucks, no.
Oh my god,
that's it for us. That's it for us.
No way.
I already forgot how to end the podcast. Let's follow everyone on social media.
Follow Tyler on Twitter at Tyler_Britton, or is it just Tyler Britton
_, I think it is, or Tyler_Britton on all platforms. Hoop Venue on all platforms for my more basketball-oriented content. Sean's on Twitter at Sean_DAVI, and he's on Instagram at Sean_Davis23. He's on YouTube at The Sports Headline Show or the Los Angeles Lakers Network. We will catch you guys next time with our All-Star picks in episode number 72.